I felt embarrassed. I felt ashamed. I felt weak that I couldn't get him out of my life sooner. Living with him was a nightmare. I felt like I was in prison.
He's already broken in once. Who's to say he's not going to do it again?
Subject is trying to get into a residence and he has a gun.
These are our last moments. There's no escaping this. I truly thought we were going to be dead.
When desire overtakes reason, the human mind can unleash deadly obsession. These are true stories told by the victims.
I've been a nurse a very long time, since 1971. I love helping people. I like that emergency room life. It was something different going on every day. I have a lot of patience when it comes to taking care of patients. I wish I had that with my children. The relationship with my husband, I didn't think that things were going to work out, and I didn't like the way things were at the house. It just wasn't comfortable. We weren't interested in the same things.
When the divorce happened, myself and my younger brother and my older brother, we remained with my dad at the family house, and my mom moved out of the house.
I don't remember that being a very good year. I met Norman through a mutual friend. He's got 3 dogs of his own, and he loved my dogs. And my dogs thrive on company. Norman was an excellent cook. He liked to have every hair in its place. We laughed a lot. We would go out and listen to bands, and we did have a really nice companionship. Norman and I kept talking about moving up to Maine, and then a friend of Norman's said, gee, I was looking on Craigslist, I saw another property, and it's not far from your cabin. Norman and I moved in together. He was a self-contractor. He didn't work for anybody, he worked for himself.
I can't believe I actually own it.
Well, I hope you're going to share.
Norman and I both loved it up in Maine, and it was a totally different environment than living in Rhode Island. I wasn't on the best relationship with my children at that time, so I decided I needed to move on.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
When my mom made the decision to move up to Maine, I think that that may have been during a time where I had really distanced myself from her. I don't think that I really had too much emotion to it. I guess this is the path that she's choosing.
Since I've been up in Maine, I got a job working for a private agency, and I'm a private duty healthcare nurse. Norman didn't have any jobs. His health wasn't that great. He started having a lot of sciatica pain, foot pain with neuropathy. His joints were collapsing in his foot. That was causing a lot of pain for him to walk. It was extremely difficult watching Norman, who I loved, go downhill like that. He would drink alcohol to get rid of his pain. That was the only way he could think to get rid of it. Norman was drinking pretty heavily. You know, it wasn't at supper time, it was during the day. And it just kept escalating.
Did you take your meds?
His health started to go downhill. He had diabetes. Being the nurse I am, I tried to keep him out of trouble. I tried to keep his drinking down, but it didn't work.
You might want to take it easy. You're going to make yourself sick.
Stop with your whining, woman.
It's hard to say when I really stopped loving Norman. Just the way his behavior was, his being disrespectful, the drinking. We had no relationship, whatever, as far as intimacy or anything like that. I was a caregiver to him. Even though I didn't have feelings for him anymore, I was taking care of him. And I wished I hadn't now.
Where have you been?
The store.
Norman was so controlling. If I went anywhere, I'd get, well, where were you, and this and that.
We were out of bleach. I wanted to clean the cabin this weekend. We got renters next week.
Were you seeing your boyfriend?
I think he just wanted to give me a hard time.
I got the receipt. You can see where I've been and when I left.
When I first saw it, I says, I don't want any part of any gun here. I really don't want to live with anybody that has a gun in the house. I would ask him where it was. He wouldn't tell me. And I would look for the gun in the house. I never found it. If I call the police, they're going to say, well, he's been living here. He's made a home here. You can't evict him. I'd go to bed at night crying. And I'm like, why is this happening to me? You know, I have no contact with my kids. And it was horrible. It really was horrible. I thought about them all the time, and I just came to realize that I needed to get out of this relationship, but how? I was determined not to leave my own house. When things came to a head for me, was on July 1st. It was on a Friday. And I came home from work. His eyes were all glassy. I could tell he'd been drinking all day. Living with him was a nightmare. I felt like I was in prison. I hate to say it that way, but I owned the home, but yet he felt he was entitled. And he constantly said, "This is my home. I am not leaving. You leave." I didn't say anything. I had to get a few things ready because I had renters coming in for the July 4th week. And I decided that I'll just stay there for the night and leave when the renters come in the morning. And I went down into the bathroom, sat in the toilet to pee. He's standing there facing me, and he's only 6, 7 feet away from me. And he had this awful look in his eyes, just a cold look. It was like he was looking through me. He started to make some sexual demands to me.
Oh, please, just leave me alone.
I want to smash your glasses.
I took them off. I set them down on the floor. And I'm still sitting on the toilet because there was nowhere for me to go. He just looked at me.
I should tie your wrists and your ankles together and burn you in this house. Then shoot myself.
I didn't dare say another word. I didn't say one word to him. Norman was drinking pretty heavily. His eyes were all glassy. I could tell he'd been drinking all day.
I should tie your wrists and burn you in this house. Then shoot myself.
I didn't reply to it. I could just tell that something was not right with him at all. So I'm standing in there, and I could hear him on the other side of the door, and he had his hands on the doorknob. I was on the floor, and I waited. And I'm thinking in my mind, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? It was probably 5 or 6 minutes went by, and then I heard him walk away. And I could hear him go in the refrigerator. He was making another drink. So I got out of the bathroom really quickly. I went in the bedroom. I got the few things I needed to bring over to the cabin. And I decided that I wasn't going to go back that night. Decided I'll just stay there for the night. I really felt like he meant it. My renters came the following morning.
I think that's everything you need to know. He has the keys, and everything you need to know is in there. Just give me a call if you have any questions.
It was my first rental of the season, and I actually sat and talked with them for 2 hours just to get to know them. I was trying to process where I was going to go because I didn't want to go back to the house. I didn't know what I was going to do then. I get a phone call from the renters. I could hear yelling in the background. and I could hear the dogs barking. And she says, there's somebody here.
Slow down. Just tell me what happened.
She said, he won't tell me his name, but he said, he's your husband. And I said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I says, he's not my husband. Well, he said he's your husband and he owns the property. And he told us to get the off the property, that he was going to be here all weekend.
Let me speak to Norman. No, Norman, you need to leave. You have no right to be there.
He finally got in his car and he drove away. The husband said to me, he says, I can't stay here. He says, I really don't know if he'd come back here with a gun. You know, he was right. So I had to give them all their money back for that week. Police came and they said I could serve him with a no trespassing order. I decided that was the wisest thing to do. The deputy went with me back to my house. He was going to give Norman the no trespassing order. Norman wasn't there. Norman ended up staying with a friend that he knew just down the street from where I lived. There just was no getting rid of him. Always in the back of my mind, I knew that there would be retaliation against me. I knew he would show up, but the when is, I just had to be on my toes.
At the tone, please record your message.
I know things have been tricky between us, but I really need your help. Things between Norman and I have gotten really bad. Please call me.
She was very frantic in the message. I could tell that she was scared by the tone of her voice and to please call me immediately.
Hello?
When I received that voice message, I was pretty terrified and my anxiety went through the roof, and the social worker in me popped out and was like, we gotta do something. We gotta get into action here.
I finally told her some of the things, what was going on. I felt embarrassed. I felt ashamed.
I'm so sorry.
I felt weak that I couldn't get him out of my life sooner.
I knew that things were escalating and things were getting worse and really getting to an unsafe place.
Well, I was thinking of getting a protection order.
It was a turning point in our relationship because it became a bond between let's be safe together and let me show you how to be safe.
I love you too.
I was so happy that she was finally taking the right steps. However, the other part of me knew that these are just pieces of paper, and is this actually going to protect her?
I don't think I slept too much the night before the court date. I got up a little bit before 7, and all of a sudden I heard my 2 dogs barking. I could just tell that somebody was in the yard, and they couldn't see who it was. I looked out the window, and I saw Norman's car. My nerves were shot then. I was a nervous wreck, and knowing that he was there and we had to be in court in 2 hours. I decided I was going to file a protection order. I got up a little bit before 7 on the court date, and I saw Norman's car.
What do you want? You're not supposed to be here.
I went and got my phone. I put it on so I could take a picture. And I did that because I wanted to have proof that he was there and what he was wearing at the time. I should have called 911. I didn't because I knew that they would arrest him immediately and take him away. And then I wouldn't get my permanent protection order. My heart was pounding at the time when I realized I had no control over the situation now because I couldn't see Norman. I had no idea where he was hiding. I couldn't see every single spot, but I knew I could move a lot faster than him. I went out the front door. I quickly looked in his truck there. He wasn't in the truck. I don't see him anywhere. I pulled out of the driveway and drove to the courthouse. To this day, I don't know where he was hiding. He was in jail for 5 days until July 25th. I knew I had to watch my back. Mediators at the district attorney's office told me that for good behavior, he gets out early. I told the neighbors in the surrounding area of next to my house of what was going on if they saw him. I felt I needed to know.
No, I don't.
A neighbor saw Norman over here, and he was there for a little while. He was rearrested, and this time he was going in for a long time. I know they were trying for 120 days, and I figured, well, that's going to put him into maybe the end of the first week of December. Once Norman was out of the picture and not living with me, I felt I could get my relationship with my daughter back on track because she was helping me a lot emotionally just over the telephone.
Hey,
And
honey,
we
it's me.
talked very frequently.
Oh, definitely. It's Thanksgiving. I would love to spend it with you. With your boyfriend. Of course he can come. I'm desperate to meet Jason.
I was really happy that Jason and Alyssa were coming up for Thanksgiving. Alyssa told me a lot about him. He's very outgoing, very outdoorsy, just like being outside. Snowboarding, hikes up the mountains. He just seemed to make her really, really happy. Well, this was devastating news to me that he was getting out before Thanksgiving. Alyssa had planned to come up with Jason. I hadn't spent a holiday with her in years, a long time, and I was excited about it, but now Norman was out of jail. It was just high anxiety for me. On Monday, I got home a little bit before 8. And I remember looking at the clock when the phone rang, and it was 8:20. And it was Norman. I picked it up.
Hello?
I actually didn't say anything, and everything was quiet. My dogs didn't make a peep.
Hello? Are you there?
I just pretended that there was nothing there, and I think he might have thought he had a bad connection. So he hung up. He called me 30 plus times. I called the deputies. They had to put out a warrant for his arrest, and they're asking me, where do you think he went? I says, I don't know where he is. I quickly went to the store to get groceries for Thanksgiving. By the time I got back to my house, it was 9:45 at night.
Ginger? Maren? Where are you?
Usually the dogs greet me. Where are the dogs?
Ginger?
And I called them, they didn't answer. Went to do the deadbolt, and the deadbolt wasn't locked. And I'm like thinking, geez, did a door get left open and they got through a gate or something? And I mean, this all happened in a matter of probably 10 seconds, and panic mode set in. I see some screws on the floor, pieces from the deadbolt, the latch on the floor. The door had been broken into. Norman was out of jail. I knew I had to watch my back.
Ginger? Maren?
Where are the dogs? I see some screws on the floor, pieces from the deadbolt. The door had been broken into. I realized he broke in and stole the dogs. And I was so upset. I mean, there was big escalation right there from the time the warrant was out till 2 days later when he broke in. He knows how I love those dogs, and he knew how it would hurt me that he would take the dogs. I know he felt like he was in somewhat of control still. Now nobody knew where he was.
How do you like being alone now?
Where are the dogs?
Don't you worry. They're eating steak.
And he just was very sarcastic. It wasn't a long conversation, a couple of minutes, and he hung up. Alyssa called me when she was getting close. I started to tell her, I says, please go up to our friend's house. It's 5 miles up this windy, hilly road. I says, Norman would never go up there. And she said, no, Ma, Jason and I talked about it. We're adults. We made our decision. We want to stay at the cabin. And the last thing I remember her saying was, we're not going to let Norman ruin our weekend up here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to spending Thanksgiving with you. I love you.
I hadn't heard from Norman since he broke in and stole the dogs. We went to the cabin and we had a bunch of stuff to heat up. It was a nice dinner. It was regular Thanksgiving dinner.
After Thanksgiving dinner, there wasn't any fears that I was having. I really didn't think that Jason and I were in harm's way, so I went to bed like it was any other night. I didn't think that we were a target. I didn't think that Norm was after us. I thought that Norm was after my mom, so there was concern over her safety. My mom booby-trapped the house to protect herself. She didn't have the dogs to be able to let her know if someone was coming into the house. He's already broken in once. Who's to say he's not going to do it again?
I just moved all kinds of furniture that he would have had to climb over, trip over. Just a regular friggin' obstacle course.
We ended up dropping my mom off at her house, and she had planned to make us a chocolate cream pie because Jason had been waiting for like years to try her chocolate cream pie.
So, I'm gonna stay with the friends tonight, okay? So relax.
I wasn't really too nervous. I knew that she had the booby traps. I knew that she had her phone on her. I wasn't too anxious about her going back in there.
I had heard Jason whispering to her, "Your mom hasn't made me the chocolate cream pie she promised." And so I told Alyssa I would make a pie and come by later with it. So by the time I got it made and cooled a little bit, it was getting close to 9.
Jason and I got back to the cabin. We set up for a nice cozy evening. We put the fireplace on and we set up a board game.
Hey, honey. I just brought the pie, I promised.
We had expected her and she just popped in, dropped off the pie, and she headed out for her friend's house.
Say goodnight.
I was only there from 9 to 9:30, just having a bit of a conversation.
I'll see you later. See you soon.
I left, went back to my friend's house. I shut my phone off because I just didn't want to hear that phone ringing with him again. I shouldn't have shut it off.
Sheriff's Department, open the door now!
My mom did say that the sheriffs could come by. They know that you're here. They may want to do a well-being check.
Hello? Hello?
Immediately, my heart starts beating like crazy, and I'm thinking the worst at this point. I called my mom. She didn't answer.
At the tone, please record your message.
So I immediately called 911, and I'm still on the phone with 911. At this point, I see a figure in the window. It's Norman Strobel. You have to get here now. When he began firing, I just dropped to the ground. I just immediately ducked behind the counter in the kitchen. I thought that we were dead. I didn't know how we would survive something like that. We were trapped and we had nowhere to escape. I was looking across the kitchen at Jason like, these are our last moments. There's no escaping this. I truly thought we were going to be dead. Jason and I looked at each other and knew that we had to get into the bedroom, which was behind me. As Jason ran across the kitchen, he was shot. He slowly tumbled onto me, saying I was hit. I was hit. And I closed the door behind us, and he collapsed into my lap. I knew that I needed to stop the bleeding, but I also knew that I couldn't leave the bedroom. I thought that if I left the bedroom, I would be shot too. I took the comforters, I took the pillows off the bed. and I surrounded them around Jason, and I used the pillows to put pressure on him. My mind was going crazy. I was envisioning all the things we talked about, our future plans to get married, to have a family. And it was like, they're not gonna happen. He's not gonna make it. How could he make it? I did the best I could. I thought that these were his last moments, and that he shouldn't be alone. He should be with me.
The first thing that I heard was from the sergeant. He informed me what had happened, and I was like in complete shock. I actually felt numb. I felt like I had no reaction at all to what they were telling me. I kept thinking, Jason can't die, he can't die.
Well, where's Norman?
Norman was nowhere to be found, so that they were going to send patrol cars over to where I was to protect us. I don't know how long it was, how long a period it was, and then the phone rang. I could see it was Norman.
I done a bad thing. I killed Alyssa's boyfriend.
Well, I knew we had to keep him talking because they had to find where he was. So I knew they only could find him by his phone.
You don't sound too good. I think we should talk.
I don't know, it might have been 5 minutes. I'm not really sure. And he hung up. The sheriffs finally located him around 4 in the morning. They tried talking over the intercom to get anybody to come out. They could hear the dogs barking. All I know is they went in. The dogs were okay. Norman was in the hallway at the time when the police came, and all I know is, the gun was there, Norman was there, and the shooting began. And Norman was killed. My feelings when Norman got shot were, I guess, I was glad I wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. But then I was so angry at him because I really wanted to give him a piece of my mind. I was broken when I saw Alyssa. I couldn't believe that this happened. Just trying to get my relationship back with her. Meeting Jason, having a holiday with them. And it all just was ruined. And Jason, we didn't know if he was going to make it. If Jason dies, I just want to die because I really didn't want to live knowing what my ex-boyfriend did to my daughter's boyfriend.
Jason was shot 4 times and he received 5 different surgeries. The trauma doctor came to check in with us probably about every 15 minutes, and you could tell by his facial expression and him looking at the ground that it was not looking good.
His blood pressure was horrible. His oxygen was 40%, his oxygen saturation. It should be over 90.
And I began preparing and trying to accept that Jason wasn't going to survive and that our future wasn't going to happen.
I'm extremely lucky to be alive. None of the surgeons or the medical team or the rescue teams from that night expected me to live. The homicide detective actually came to the hospital that night because I wasn't supposed to make it, so he was going to be interviewing Alyssa and her mom and to see what happened. My injuries from the attack are I lost half my stomach, my spleen is gone, I had liver damage, I had broken ribs. I have honestly struggled with why I survived since then. I don't know why I survived when I shouldn't have survived. It's something that I've questioned often and often.
I'm very proud of Alyssa. She's done so much in her life, and she just is a wonderful person. I'm just hoping my relationship with Alyssa will continue to grow and be like mother and daughter should be.
As all of us healed, Sandy, Alyssa, and I started building that relationship up and having the communication again. And present day, I think we all get along very well. Alyssa and I now are stronger than ever. I don't think two people could be closer or stronger than we are. And I feel like we were extremely close and strong before this happened, and this has just magnified it tenfold, if not more.
I believe right now my relationship looks bright with my new boyfriend.
Part 1. Nobody in Ashgrove remembered exactly when fear first arrived. Some blamed the stormy summer of 1988, when thunder rattled windows almost every night and stray dogs howled toward the woods after midnight. Others said the town changed the moment Clara Whitmore disappeared because after that, silence itself began to feel dangerous. Streets emptied earlier. Porch lights stayed on longer. Mothers checked bedroom windows twice before sleeping. But before the panic, before the headlines, before television crews flooded the county roads searching for a killer nobody could see, Ashgrove was the kind of town people trusted blindly. That trust became the perfect hiding place. Clara Whitmore finished her shift at Monroe's Diner at 11:17 p.m. on August 14, 1988. Witnesses remembered small details later because guilt makes memory sharper. One waitress recalled Clara laughing about a broken coffee machine while wiping down counters. A truck driver remembered her standing beneath the neon diner sign, tying her blonde hair into a loose ponytail before walking toward her car. Another customer claimed he saw a dark pickup truck parked across the highway with headlights off. Nobody thought much about it. The parking lot sat beside Highway 16, where trucks stopped constantly after midnight. Clara never made it home. By morning, her apartment remained untouched. Purse missing, dog barking nonstop behind locked doors. The television still glowing faintly in the living room because Clara always left it on for background noise when sleeping. Her younger sister called police just after 9 a.m. when Clara failed to answer repeated phone calls. Detectives found a car hours later beside an abandoned baseball field near the edge of town. Driver's door slightly open. Keys gone. No blood. No body. Only a strange detail investigators couldn't explain. Muddy boot prints circling the vehicle twice before disappearing into grass wet from overnight rain. The search began immediately. Volunteers combed forests carrying flashlights while helicopters thundered above tree lines. Teenagers skipped school to help pass out missing person flyers across Ashgrove. Churches organized candlelight vigils. News stations interrupted programming with grainy photographs of Clara smiling beside headlines asking where she vanished. 3 days later, somebody called the sheriff's department anonymously. Male voice. "Calm. You're searching the wrong woods." Then the line disconnected. Police traced nothing. Weeks passed without answers. Ash Grove tried returning to normal afterward because small towns survive tragedy through denial. People convinced themselves Clara probably ran away. Maybe drugs. Maybe a secret boyfriend. Maybe an accident somewhere beyond county lines. Anything sounded easier than accepting the possibility a predator hunted women nearby. Then Emily Vance disappeared. Different season. Different location. Same nightmare. Emily taught second grade at Ash Grove Elementary and spent Friday night volunteering during a church fundraiser at St. Luke's Hall. Witnesses remembered music playing loudly inside while rain hammered against windows outside. Families laughed. Children ran between tables eating cake. Nobody noticed Danger standing among them because Danger smiled constantly that night. Daniel Harrow helped organize the event. Everyone knew Daniel. He coached baseball, fixed roofs after storms, delivered groceries to elderly neighbors during winter blizzards. The kind of man reporters loved interviewing after disasters because he always sounded calm and compassionate. Several witnesses later remembered Daniel helping Emily carry folding chairs toward the storage room shortly before she left. At 10:42 p.m., Emily walked alone toward the parking lot beneath steady rain. She vanished before reaching her car. Police discovered the vehicle abandoned beside Blackwater Creek early the next morning with blood smeared across the passenger seat. Tiny droplets, barely visible, but enough to destroy the town's illusion that Clara Whitmore simply disappeared voluntarily. Now there were 2 women, 2 crime scenes, 2 unsolved disappearances haunting the same county. National media arrived within days. Satellite trucks crowded courthouse streets. Reporters described Ash Grove as a peaceful community, living beneath the shadow of an unknown predator. Experts appeared on television discussing serial offenders, while frightened residents watched from locked living rooms clutching coffee cups with shaking hands. Gun sales tripled across the county. Women stopped jogging alone. Restaurants closed earlier. Parents waited beside windows until daughters returned home safely. And through all of it, Daniel Harrow remained everywhere. Search parties, prayer vigils, community meetings, television interviews. "Whoever did this belongs behind bars forever," he told reporters outside St. Luke's Church while rain soaked his jacket. "We can't let fear destroy this town." Nobody noticed how comfortable he looked around cameras. Nobody questioned why he volunteered for every search effort personally. Because people trusted him. That trust buried the truth deeper than any grave. Detective Samuel Grady did not trust easily. 20 years homicide experience had carved exhaustion permanently into his face long before the Ash Grove disappearances began. Thick mustache, wrinkled suit smelling faintly of cigarette smoke and stale coffee. Grady spent nights studying crime scene photographs alone beneath flickering office lights while younger deputies chased rumors across county roads. Something about the cases bothered him immediately, not forensic evidence. Behavior. The killer selected victims carefully. Public locations. Familiar surroundings. Minimal violence visible at scenes. No sexual assault evidence recovered. No ransom demands. Everything controlled. Organized. Patient. And one familiar name appeared repeatedly inside witness statements. Daniel Harrow. Barely enough for suspicion. But Grady noticed patterns nobody else cared about. Daniel attended the softball game near Clara Whitmore's abandoned car the night she vanished. Daniel volunteered beside Emily Vance throughout the church fundraiser hours before her disappearance. Daniel somehow arrived early at nearly every search operation despite living across town. Coincidence alone explained everything. Still, Grady couldn't shake the feeling crawling through his instincts every time Daniel smiled during interviews. Too relaxed, too confident, too prepared. Yet instinct means nothing without evidence. And evidence refused to cooperate. No fingerprints. No eyewitnesses placing Daniel directly beside either victim. Nothing. Then winter arrived carrying another nightmare. Rachel Mercer disappeared during a snowstorm in January 1991 after leaving a movie theater with friends. She was 19, studying nursing, obsessed with horror novels and old rock music, according to classmates interviewed later by television reporters desperate for emotional details. One witness claimed Rachel argued beside a dark pickup truck before vanishing into blowing snow near the theater parking lot. Another insisted she entered willingly. Police found her scarf along Highway 16 the next morning, half buried beneath fresh snow. No body, no arrest, 3 women gone. The Ash Grove disappearances officially became national news after that. Crime magazines published dramatic headlines calling the unknown offender the Blackwater Phantom. FBI profilers briefly joined the investigation. Search dogs combed forests for weeks. Psychics flooded police hotlines with visions and nonsense. Hundreds of tips arrived daily. Nothing held together. Every lead collapsed eventually. Meanwhile, Daniel Harrow continued building his reputation as one of Ash Grove's most trusted residents. Married, respected, helpful, he even organized self-defense workshops for local women after Rachel Mercer vanished. People applauded him for it. Detective Grady nearly lost his mind watching Daniel move untouched through the center of every tragedy while investigators drowned beneath dead ends. He interviewed Daniel 3 separate times between 1988 and 1992. Every conversation felt wrong. Daniel answered calmly, never defensive, never nervous. He maintained eye contact too perfectly, remembered tiny details about search efforts most volunteers forgot instantly. Once, during questioning about Rachel Mercer, Daniel casually mentioned snow conditions along Highway 16 before investigators publicly released where Rachel's scarf was found. Grady noticed immediately, but when confronted, Daniel smiled. Everybody in town was talking about Highway 16, he said calmly. Maybe I heard it somewhere. No proof otherwise. Nothing. Years passed. Ash Grove tried surviving beneath permanent fear, while families of the missing women slowly collapsed under grief. Clara Whitmore's mother kept porch lights burning every night for 13 straight years, hoping her daughter might somehow return. Emily Vance's husband moved away after developing severe alcoholism. Rachel Mercer's younger brother dropped out of college, obsessed with searching online forums for serial predators connected to nearby states. The town itself changed too. Children grew up hearing warnings about dark roads and strangers. Women memorized license plates instinctively. Trust disappeared quietly. Then came the 4th victim, Olivia Reed, 12 years old. She vanished riding her bicycle home from a friend's house in August 1994. Everything exploded after that. Search helicopters shook windows across Ash Grove nonstop for days. FBI agents flooded schools. National reporters interviewed crying parents live on television, while volunteers searched fields beneath brutal summer heat. Thousands joined candlelight vigils outside the courthouse, carrying photographs of missing girls already becoming ghosts. Daniel Harrow stood near the front of every crowd, comforting people, organizing supplies, helping investigators coordinate volunteers. The perfect citizen, the perfect mask. Then someone found Olivia's bicycle beside an abandoned service road 6 miles outside town. Bent frame, blood on the handlebars. Entangled inside broken weeds nearby, detectives discovered something almost invisible beneath dirt and rainwater. A single blonde hair. The evidence entered storage quietly after forensic testing failed during the 90s. Technology back then couldn't extract enough DNA for identification. So the hair remained buried inside an evidence box, gathering dust for nearly 27 years. Until May 2021. Until new forensic genealogy technology changed everything. Until a young lab analyst reopened forgotten evidence from the Ash Grove disappearances and discovered microscopic skin cells hidden deep inside Rachel Mercer's blue sweater. A male DNA profile emerged slowly across her computer screen late one Thursday night. Partial, damaged, but usable. Enough for genealogical comparison. Enough to resurrect ghosts. And 3 days later, when the first family tree connection appeared inside the state database, the analyst stared at a monitor in complete silence because one name surfaced immediately above all others. Daniel Harrow. Part 2. The DNA match reached Detective Laura Bennett at 2:13 in the morning while rain hammered against the windows of the State Cold Case Division in Portland. She almost ignored the notification entirely because false leads happen constantly in forensic genealogy investigations. Partial profiles produced distant relatives. Distant relatives produced endless dead ends. But something about the Ash Grove case already carried weight inside the department. For missing women, 33 years without answers. One retired detective dead from obsession. Entire families destroyed by uncertainty. Then Bennett opened the report and saw the name, Daniel Harrow. For several seconds, she simply stared at the screen while the storm outside rattled the building. Daniel Harrow was not some drifter buried deep inside forgotten criminal databases. He wasn't transient, wasn't dead, wasn't hiding across state lines. He still lived in Ash Grove, still attended church every Sunday, still volunteered at community events, still smiled for local newspaper photographs during charity drives. The realization felt physically wrong. Bennett immediately reopened archived interviews from the original investigation. Grainy videotapes flickered across her monitor, showing Daniel sitting calmly inside interrogation rooms during the early 90s answering questions about missing women, while detectives chain-smoked cigarettes nearby. He looked comfortable. Too comfortable. "Everybody's scared," Daniel said during one interview from 1991 after Rachel Mercer vanished. "You want to believe monsters look different, but they don't." The sentence froze Bennett completely, because he almost sounded amused saying it. By sunrise, the state police officially reopened the Ash Grove disappearances under active homicide investigation. A small task force assembled quietly inside the Cold Case Division, while forensic teams rushed additional evidence for advanced DNA testing. Detectives avoided media completely because if Daniel Harrow truly connected the crimes, any public leak might send him running before investigators gathered enough proof for arrest. Bennett drove to Ash Grove personally that same afternoon. The town looked exactly like thousands of forgotten American communities scattered beside long highways and dying forests. Quiet diners, faded storefronts, church steeples rising above empty streets. Nothing about Ash Grove suggested terror. Once lived there for decades. Yet beneath every conversation, every cautious glance from older residents, Bennett sensed lingering fear that never truly disappeared. Some wounds stay hidden beneath ordinary life forever. She visited the cemetery first. Clara Whitmore's mother sat alone beside an empty memorial stone because Clara's body was never recovered. 82 years old now, frail hands folded tightly across her lap, while dead leaves drifted across wet grass. When Bennett mentioned Daniel Harrow carefully, the old woman stopped breathing for a moment. "I always wondered about him," she whispered. "Not because of evidence, because of a funeral." After Emily Vance disappeared in 1989, Ash Grove organized a memorial service despite never finding remains. Hundreds attended beneath gray skies, while reporters filmed grieving families, holding candles outside St. Luke's Church. Clara Whitmore's mother remembered looking toward Daniel during the ceremony and noticing something that haunted her ever since. He smiled, not openly, not dramatically, just a faint smile while everyone else cried. "At first I thought maybe I imagined it," she told Bennett quietly. "Who smiles at something like that?" The detail lodged inside Bennett's mind immediately because retired Detective Samuel Grady wrote something similar years earlier buried inside handwritten notes recovered from his garage after death. Watch his face at funerals. Bennett spent the next several days reconstructing Daniel Harrow's life piece by piece. Born 1962, married high school sweetheart Karen Harrow in 1984. No criminal record. Stable employment delivering construction materials across 3 counties during the exact years women vanished from Ash Grove. That detail mattered enormously. Delivery routes meant mobility, isolation, opportunity, and according to old invoices recovered from Harrow Construction Supply, Daniel regularly traveled roads surrounding every disappearance site during the late 80s and early 90s. Still not enough for arrest. DNA alone remained partial and circumstantial until confirmed directly against Daniel himself. So investigators watched him quietly. Unmarked vehicles parked near his house. Surveillance teams monitored routines. Detectives interviewed former co-workers, discreetly hoping somebody remembered disturbing behavior hidden beneath decades of normalcy. Most described Daniel exactly the same way. Helpful, reliable, quiet, but eventually tiny cracks began appearing. One former employee recalled Daniel becoming strangely angry whenever missing women appeared on television during lunch breaks. Another remembered unexplained scratches covering Daniel's hands shortly after Rachel Mercer vanished during the snowstorm in 1991. Then came the story investigators couldn't ignore. A retired waitress from Monroe's Diner contacted police after hearing rumors the case reopened. 33 years earlier, the night Clara Whitmore disappeared, the waitress claimed she saw Daniel sitting alone inside the diner near closing time, watching Clara constantly. He wasn't eating, she said, just staring. Why never report it before? Because Daniel was trusted, and because memory feels dangerous when nobody else believes you. Meanwhile, forensic scientists worked around the clock testing additional evidence from storage boxes untouched for decades. Fibers recovered from Emily Vance's abandoned car, blood traces from Olivia Reed's bicycle, hair samples collected near Blackwater Creek. The results began forming a horrifying picture. Multiple items now linked genetically to Daniel Harrow. Not coincidence, not contamination. A pattern, a predator hidden beneath ordinary life for decades. Still, prosecutors demanded direct DNA confirmation before approving arrest warrants. Detectives needed something indisputable, something defense attorneys couldn't dismantle later inside courtrooms. So they waited and watched. Daniel continued living normally, completely unaware the walls around him were finally closing after 33 years. He attended church potlucks, mowed lawns, drank coffee each morning at Rusty's gas station beside highway workers, discussing weather forecasts and football scores. Sometimes he smiled at police officers casually when passing them downtown. The confidence disturbed Bennett deeply because serial offenders surviving long-term often develop dangerous arrogance. They begin believing themselves untouchable, smarter than investigators, protected by time itself. Daniel certainly acted untouchable until October 17, 2021. Surveillance officers watched Daniel throw away a half-empty soda bottle outside a hardware store parking lot at 3:42 p.m. Detectives recovered it minutes later, wearing gloves, before rushing the item directly toward forensic labs. 48 hours later, the results arrived. Exact DNA match. Rachel Mercer, Emily Vance, Olivia Reed, all connected genetically to Daniel Harrow. After 33 years, the Ash Grove killer finally had a name. The arrest operation launched before dawn on October 21st. Rain poured across empty streets while armored vehicles surrounded Daniel's modest suburban home quietly beneath darkness. Tactical teams moved through wet grass carrying rifles toward the front porch while television stations remained unaware history was unfolding inside Ash Grove at that exact moment. At 5:14 a.m., police breached the front door. Daniel Harrow woke inside his bedroom beside his wife, completely surrounded by armed officers screaming commands through flashlights. Detectives expected panic, violence, shock. Instead, Daniel sat upright slowly and asked one question. Which evidence finally got me? The room fell silent instantly. Not denial, not confusion. He already knew. Detective Bennett stepped forward, watching him carefully, while officers handcuffed his wrists behind his back. Rachel Mercer, she answered. For the first time, Daniel's expression changed slightly, almost impressed. Then he nodded once. I always wondered if science would catch up eventually. Outside, neighbors gathered beneath umbrellas, watching police drag one of Ash Grove's most respected residents toward armored vehicles and handcuffs. Confusion spread rapidly through crowds because nobody understood what was happening yet. Karen Harrow screamed repeatedly from the porch while reporters finally arrived after emergency scanners exploded with activity across the county. By noon, national news networks interrupted programming nationwide. Breaking news. Trusted community leader arrested in decades-old serial murder case. Ash Grove erupted into chaos instantly. People refused believing it. Church members defended Daniel publicly. Parents whose children he coached broke down, crying during interviews. Others reacted differently. Some remembered strange moments, suddenly making terrible sense. Women recalled Daniel following them too long through grocery store aisles years earlier. Teenagers remembered uncomfortable stares during community events. Tiny buried memories resurfaced everywhere. And while the country watched in horror, investigators entered Daniel Harrow's garage later that evening carrying search warrants and forensic lights. What they discovered inside would transform the Ash Grove investigation from cold case murder inquiry into something infinitely darker. Because hidden behind shelves stacked with paint cans and rusted tools, detectives found a locked metal cabinet bolted directly into the wall. Inside sat dozens of trophies, carefully preserved across 3 decades. Jewelry, photographs, driver's licenses, and one faded blue ribbon stained dark brown with blood. Olivia Reed's mother identified it within minutes on national television. It belonged to her daughter. Part 3. The moment Olivia Reed's mother identified the blue ribbon on live television, Ash Grove stopped defending Daniel Harrow. Until then, disbelief still protected people emotionally. Church members insisted police made mistakes. Former co-workers blamed contaminated evidence. Some residents even gathered outside the county courthouse, holding signs demanding Daniel's release, because accepting the truth meant admitting evil lived among them for more than 3 decades, wearing the face of a trusted neighbor. But the ribbon destroyed denial. Olivia wore it the morning she disappeared in August 1994. School photographs confirmed it. Family home videos confirmed it. Her mother remembered tying the ribbon into Olivia's hair before the little girl rode away on her bicycle for the last time. Now it sat hidden inside Daniel Harrow's garage among trophies collected from missing women. The country erupted. News helicopters circled above Ash Grove day and night, while reporters crowded sidewalks outside the sheriff's department broadcasting non-stop updates beside giant screens displaying photographs of the victims. Former FBI profilers appeared on national programs, calling the case one of the most disturbing cold case breakthroughs in recent history because of one horrifying fact nobody could ignore. Daniel Harrow never left town. For 33 years, he lived beside grieving families, attended memorial services, shook hands with investigators, comforted mothers whose daughters he likely murdered, and all the while, evidence sat hidden inside a garage cabinet behind ordinary household junk. Detective Laura Bennett barely slept during the first week after the arrest. Every hour uncovered new evidence. Every new discovery made the case darker. Federal agents joined the investigation, immediately fearing Daniel may connect to disappearances beyond Ash Grove. Forensic teams searched his property inch by inch beneath floodlights, while crowds gathered beyond police tape, whispering rumors late into freezing autumn nights. The garage became ground zero. Investigators cataloged over 70 items recovered from the hidden cabinet. Jewelry matched photographs from victims taken years before disappearances. Tiny personal belongings linked to women nobody even associated with the Ash Grove murders originally. A silver bracelet traced back to a waitress missing from Riverton County since 1987. A student identification card belonging to a college freshman who vanished during spring break in 1992. The victim count suddenly looked much larger. And then detectives found the photographs. Polaroids, dozens of them. Some showed victims alive in ordinary situations, completely unaware someone watched them secretly from a distance. Clara Whitmore pumping gas. Emily Vance unlocking her car outside school. Rachel Mercer carrying books through a parking lot while snow drifted around her. Daniel stalked them for weeks, maybe months. Other photographs disturb investigators even more. Blurred basement walls. Rope. Dark stains across concrete floors. One image showed Olivia Reed's bicycle leaning against unfinished wooden beams somewhere underground. The photograph had been taken before she disappeared publicly, meaning Daniel planned everything long in advance. The realization sickened even veteran detectives. Meanwhile, Daniel remained eerily calm inside county jail. No panic, no emotional collapse. During interrogations, he spoke politely, almost casually, refusing direct confessions while occasionally correcting investigators about timelines and evidence details with unsettling precision. "You recovered the ribbon too early," he told Detective Bennett during one interview. I thought you'd find the licenses first. Bennett stared across the metal table in silence, trying to understand how someone could discuss murdered women with the emotional tone of a man reviewing grocery lists. What happened to Clara Whitmore? She asked finally. Daniel smiled faintly. That was a long time ago. Not remorse, not regret, just distance. The interviews became psychological warfare almost immediately. Daniel never denied involvement directly, but he avoided full admissions carefully enough to frustrate prosecutors. Behavioral analysts believed he enjoyed controlling information because power mattered more to him than secrecy now. After decades hidden successfully, exposure itself became another stage for manipulation, and he clearly enjoyed watching investigators chase the truth. Then came the first excavation. Search teams returned to Blackwater Creek after forensic analysts identified soil traces inside Daniel's garage matching riverbank sediment near Emily Vance's abandoned car. Ground-penetrating radar scanned wooded areas surrounding the creek, while crowds of reporters waited outside barricades, broadcasting live around the clock. On the second afternoon, cadaver dogs alerted near a cluster of dead pine trees. Beside the water, detectives started digging. The atmosphere turned unbearable almost instantly. Nobody spoke much. Helicopter blades echoed overhead, while wet earth piled beside the excavation site under gray skies. Some investigators who worked cold cases for decades later admitted they already knew what waited beneath the soil before the shovels struck anything solid. At 4:42 p.m., workers uncovered human remains wrapped in deteriorated plastic. Female, young adult, a necklace still hanging around skeletal remains matched photographs of Emily Vance taken before her disappearance in 1989. 32 years underground. 32 years while Daniel Harrow attended church 20 minutes away, pretending to mourn her disappearance alongside everyone else. Ash Grove broke completely after that. Crowds gathered outside Daniel's house, screaming at police lines while strangers left flowers beside temporary memorials downtown. Some residents demanded the house burned immediately. Others simply cried openly during interviews because emotional betrayal cut deeper than the murders themselves. Daniel belonged to them, trusted them, knew them personally, and according to investigators, likely hunted victims directly from within that trust. Then another horrifying discovery emerged from archived delivery records. Daniel's construction supply job gave him access to remote properties, abandoned buildings, and isolated storage sites across 3 counties during every known disappearance. Detectives reopened missing person cases stretching back into the mid-'80s, searching for overlaps. They found too many. Women vanished near delivery routes repeatedly. Truck stops, service roads, small towns. Always temporary confusion, always weak evidence, always forgotten eventually. The possibility haunted investigators immediately. Ash Grove may never have been the full hunting ground. Meanwhile, forensic teams processed DNA recovered from tools inside Daniel's garage. One rusted shovel tested positive for traces of Olivia Reed's blood despite decades passing since her disappearance. Another contained biological evidence linked to Clara Whitmore. The evidence became overwhelming. Still, Daniel refused full confession. During one late-night interrogation, Detective Bennett placed family photographs from all 4 known victims across the table. "Do you even remember them?" she demanded. Daniel studied the images carefully, then pointed toward Rachel Mercer. She screamed the longest. The room froze. Even the recording technician stopped moving. Bennett later admitted that sentence changed the entire investigation psychologically because until that moment, some tiny part of her still searched for humanity somewhere beneath Daniel's mask. There wasn't any. Only calculation. Only memory. Only violence preserved coldly across decades. The next breakthrough came unexpectedly from retired Detective Samuel Grady's old notebooks recovered after his death years earlier. Investigators spent days reviewing handwritten observations overlooked during the original case. Most contained dead leads and frustrated theories. Then Bennett discovered one page marked heavily in red ink. Check the farmhouse. No address. No explanation. Just those 3 words beside an old county map. Research eventually revealed Grady suspected Daniel used an abandoned farmhouse outside Ash Grove during the early 90s, but never obtained search warrants because evidence remained too weak. The property still existed. Barely. Collapsed roof. Rotten walls. Surrounded by dead fields nearly swallowed by forest. Detectives searched it anyway. Inside the basement, they found signs someone once spent considerable time there despite years of decay. Chains bolted into concrete, old mattress springs, burn marks along walls, and scratched into wooden support beams repeatedly with what appeared to be a knife. No one hears you here. Then cadaver dogs alerted beneath loose dirt near the far corner. Excavation teams worked through the night. At dawn, they uncovered a second grave, then a third. One set of remains belonged to Clara Whitmore based on dental records. The other belonged to an unidentified woman estimated between 18 and 25 years old. Suddenly, the Ash Grove disappearances expanded beyond anything investigators imagined. Daniel Harrow wasn't simply a serial killer hiding for decades. He was likely far more prolific. And somewhere beneath the growing mountain of evidence, another terrifying question emerged slowly among investigators working sleepless nights inside overcrowded command centers. How many victims were still missing? Because every time detectives searched another property connected to Daniel Harrow, they found something waiting underground. Part 4. The third grave changed everything. Until that moment, investigators still believe the Ash Grove murders revolve around for known victims tied directly to Daniel Harrow, Clara Whitmore, Emily Vance, Rachel Mercer, Olivia Reed, for disappearances spanning 6 years. For grieving families, for crimes hidden beneath decades of lies. But the unidentified woman buried beneath the abandoned farmhouse shattered that illusion permanently. Nobody knew who she was. No missing person file matched immediately. No dental records surfaced. No fingerprint survived after decades underground. She became Jane Doe number 7 inside official reports. Yet detectives understood instinctively she represented something much larger than a single unidentified victim. She represented all the women nobody noticed disappearing. Federal authorities expanded the investigation across state lines within 48 hours. Analysts reopened cold cases stretching from Oregon to Northern California, searching for patterns connected to Daniel Harrow's delivery routes during the late 80s and 90s. Old missing person bulletins flooded command centers. Hundreds of photographs covered temporary walls inside the Ash Grove Sheriff's Department, while exhausted detectives circled names, dates, and locations deep into the night. The similarities became impossible to ignore. Young women vanished near highways repeatedly. Truck stops, gas stations, church parking lots, rainstorms, snowstorms. Always brief windows of opportunity. Always isolated locations. Always confusion afterward. And somehow Daniel Harrow appeared nearby more often than coincidence could reasonably explain. Meanwhile, Ash Grove itself descended into psychological collapse. The farmhouse discoveries broke whatever emotional stability the town still possessed. Residents stopped speaking casually in grocery stores. Parents pulled children from schools temporarily after rumors spread about hidden burial sites across surrounding forests. Some families moved away entirely unable to tolerate living near roads connected forever to violence and death. St. Luke's Church nearly emptied overnight. People remembered Daniel sitting beside them during sermons while bodies decomposed beneath dirt miles away. The betrayal poisoned everything. Detective Laura Bennett barely left the command center anymore. Coffee cups covered her desk beside stacks of victim photographs and forensic reports, while television screens played nonstop coverage from outside police barricades. National media called Daniel Harrow the Ash Grove Phantom. Now, experts debated whether he qualified among the worst serial offenders in modern American history. Still, Daniel refused full confession. He spoke selectively during interrogations, offering fragments instead of truth. Enough to disturb investigators deeply without providing actual closure. During one session, he described Clara Whitmore's perfume accurately after 33 years. Another time, he corrected detectives about weather conditions the night Emily Vance disappeared. "You keep saying it rained harder after midnight," he said calmly. "The storm slowed around 11. The detail matched archived weather reports exactly. Bennett watched him constantly searching for cracks beneath the composure. Occasionally, something surfaced briefly, flashes of irritation whenever investigators mentioned Detective Samuel Grady, genuine anger when discussing advances in DNA technology, but remorse never appeared. Not once. Then came the videotapes. Forensic technicians recovered a hidden compartment beneath floorboards inside the farmhouse basement, containing 6 VHS tapes wrapped carefully in plastic. The labels carried only dates handwritten in black marker between 1988 and 1994. Investigators delayed viewing them for hours. Everyone feared what waited on those recordings. The first tape began with static before stabilizing slowly into grainy footage of a concrete basement lit by a single hanging bulb. A woman's voice cried somewhere off camera. Chains rattled faintly. Then Daniel Harrow stepped into frame, younger by decades, yet instantly recognizable. The room watching the footage went silent. Daniel faced the camera, calmly adjusting focus before speaking casually like a man recording home movies. She still thinks somebody's coming for her. Detectives later described the atmosphere inside the viewing room as physically suffocating. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The woman crying off camera was never shown directly, but investigators identified Clara Whitmore's voice within minutes after comparing archived recordings from family videotapes. She was alive when the tape was made, terrified, begging somebody named Danny to let her go. Daniel laughed softly in response. The tape ended abruptly after 23 minutes. Several investigators walked out immediately afterward, unable to continue. The second recording proved even worse. Emily Vance appeared bound to a chair beneath dim basement lights, while Daniel questioned her calmly about personal details unrelated to the crime itself. Favorite songs, childhood memories, school experiences. Experts later concluded he enjoyed forcing victims into distorted emotional intimacy before killing them. At one point, Emily asked why he was doing this. Daniel answered quietly, "Because everybody trusts me." The sentence spread across national media within hours after leaking from law enforcement sources. Public outrage exploded. Crowds gathered outside county jail screaming for Daniel's execution, while reporters uncovered old footage showing him comforting victim families during search efforts years earlier. The contrast horrified the country beyond comprehension. A man helping carry candles during memorial services had secretly imprisoned women underground. A respected church volunteer had recorded victims begging for mercy. Ash Grove became synonymous with hidden evil almost overnight. Then another breakthrough arrived unexpectedly from forensic genealogy specialists. The unidentified woman from a farmhouse finally received a name: Nicole Barrett, 23 years old, missing since May 1987 from a town nearly 200 miles south of Ash Grove. Her disappearance never connected publicly to the Ash Grove murders because she vanished a full year before Clara Whitmore. Police originally suspected Nicole left voluntarily after relationship problems and financial difficulties. Her case faded quickly afterward. Until now, the timeline changed everything. Daniel Harrow's known murders no longer began in 1988. They began earlier, maybe much earlier. Investigators re-examined Daniel's employment history before moving to Ash Grove permanently in 1986. He worked construction deliveries across multiple states throughout his 20s. Temporary jobs, constant travel, minimal oversight, perfect conditions for hunting unnoticed. The victim count threatened expanding endlessly. And then Detective Bennett found something buried deep inside Samuel Grady's original notebooks. A list, 7 names. Not 4. Grady believed Daniel connected to at least 7 disappearances before retiring, but lacking evidence destroyed his credibility within the department. Colleagues dismissed him as obsessed, paranoid, broken by failure. Now 3 names from Grady's old list already matched confirmed victims, meaning the remaining names demanded immediate attention. Rebecca Sloan, Megan Doyle, Lisa Harper, all missing between 1985 and 1993 near locations tied loosely to Daniel's delivery routes. Search warrants multiplied rapidly afterward. Storage units, old job sites, remote properties connected indirectly to Daniel through construction contracts and temporary rentals. Cadaver dogs searched for us while excavation teams dug through abandoned wells and collapsed sheds across multiple counties. The discoveries kept coming. Human remains near an isolated riverbank, identified as Rebecca Sloan. Jewelry belonging to Megan Doyle, recovered from a buried toolbox outside a defunct warehouse. A blood-stained jacket matching Lisa Harper's disappearance, hidden inside crawl space insulation beneath Daniel's first rental home. Every layer investigators uncovered revealed another beneath it. The scale became terrifying, and through all of it, Daniel remained eerily cooperative in the strangest ways. Sometimes he volunteered small details investigators hadn't released publicly. Other times he smiled watching detectives struggle through evidence timelines. One evening during interrogation, Detective Bennett placed photographs of every identified victim across the table silently. "How many were there?" she asked finally. Daniel studied the photographs carefully. Then he tilted his head slightly. "You still think you found all of them?" The words landed like ice water, because Bennett suddenly realized something horrifying. Most serial offenders eventually lose control. They escalate, make mistakes, get reckless. Daniel Harrow survived undetected for over 30 years. That level of control suggested planning beyond anything investigators originally imagined, which meant there were likely more burial sites, more tapes, more victims. And somewhere beneath the growing nightmare-consuming ash grove, one possibility haunted detectives more than all the others combined. What if some victims were never buried at all? Part 5. The possibility that some victims were never buried changed the investigation from horrifying to almost unthinkable. Detective Laura Bennett stopped viewing Daniel Harrow as a traditional serial killer after that realization. Traditional killers eventually panic. They leave chaos behind. They improvise. Daniel didn't. Every grave discovered so far reflected patience, an organization bordering on obsession, bodies wrapped carefully, evidence concealed methodically, trophy collections preserved like museum artifacts, videotapes cataloged by year. Control mattered to him more than violence itself, which meant investigators had confront a terrifying question. What if Daniel kept some victims alive longer than anyone realized? The theory spread quietly through the task force first. Nobody wanted media hearing it without evidence because the psychological impact would devastate already traumatized families. But forensic psychologists reviewing the videotapes noticed disturbing patterns immediately. Several recordings ended abruptly, without showing victims dead. Some women appeared repeatedly across multiple tapes spanning weeks or months. And inside one blurry frame recovered from a damaged VHS cassette, analysts noticed something deeply unsettling. A calendar hanging behind Clara Whitmore showed a date nearly 6 weeks after her disappearance. 6 weeks alive underground while Ash Grove searched for us, believing she was already dead. The revelation broke Clara's surviving family emotionally. Her younger sister collapsed during private briefings after realizing Clara may have heard search helicopters overhead while trapped somewhere nobody could find. And somewhere inside county jail, Daniel Harrow remained silent, watching investigators tear themselves apart, reconstructing his crimes piece by piece. Then the next excavation uncovered something worse than bodies. A hidden room. Search teams discovered the entrance accidentally while examining property records connected to Daniel's old construction company. Years earlier, he helped renovate a remote hunting cabin 40 miles north of Ash Grove near Hollow Ridge Forest. The cabin itself looked abandoned now. Broken windows, collapsing porch, weed-swallowing gravel pathways. Detectives almost dismissed it entirely until cadaver dogs reacted violently near the fireplace. Behind the stone wall, investigators uncovered a concealed steel door leading underground. The atmosphere changed instantly. Veteran detectives later admitted the stairway itself frightened them more than any grave discovered so far, because it felt lived in, intentional, not a temporary hiding spot, a place designed for prolonged use. Flashlights revealed narrow concrete rooms beneath the cabin coated in mold and darkness. A rusted bed frame bolted directly into the floor, heavy restraints attached to walls. Children's drawings scattered beneath water damage, and scratched repeatedly across one section of concrete in desperate, uneven lines. "Please help me." The words looked old. Very old, Forensic teams sealed the site immediately while media helicopters circled above surrounding forests, broadcasting live images nationwide. News anchors struggled describing the horror unfolding beneath Ash Grove because the case no longer resembled ordinary homicide investigations. This felt like uncovering an entire hidden world beneath a peaceful town. Then investigators found the clothing. Tiny pieces at first. Shoes, hair ribbons, a child's sweater buried inside storage bins beneath the underground room. DNA testing confirmed the worst possibility almost immediately. Olivia Reed spent time there alive. The realization devastated the country. For 27 years, people believed Olivia died shortly after abduction. Now evidence suggested Daniel imprisoned a 12-year-old child underground while her parents appeared on television begging for information less than an hour away. And according to videotape timestamps recovered later, Daniel visited community search parties directly from the cabin during Olivia's captivity. He shook hands with volunteers while a child remained chained beneath the forest. National outrage exploded after those details leaked publicly. Protesters gathered outside the county jail screaming through barricades, while online communities dissected every known detail of Daniel's life, searching desperately for signs everyone missed. But there was something even investigators missed initially. Inside the underground room beneath the cabin, forensic technicians discovered fingerprints belonging to another unidentified adult male. The discovery hit the task force like a bomb. Possible complice. The entire case shifted instantly. Detective Bennett ordered immediate review of every person connected to Daniel Harrow over 3 decades. Co-workers, friends, hunting partners, church members, former employees, anyone who may have helped construct underground spaces or access isolated properties. One name surfaced repeatedly: Walter Briggs, former mechanic, known drinking companion of Daniel during the late 80s and early 90s. Died in 2008 from liver failure. At first, Briggs seemed insignificant. Minor criminal record, bar fights, drunk driving arrests. Nothing violent enough linking him naturally to serial homicide investigations. Then detectives reopened archived witness statements from Rachel Mercer's disappearance. A theater employee originally reported seeing 2 men near a dark pickup truck during a snowstorm in 1991. One resembled Daniel Harrow. The other matched Walter Briggs. The statement disappeared inside paperwork chaos during the original investigation. Now it suddenly mattered. Investigators searched Briggs' surviving property immediately. The house sat abandoned near the county line, rotting beneath dead trees and years of neglect. Neighbors described strange nighttime activity there decades earlier, but assumed Briggs simply hosted drunken hunting parties. Cadaver dogs alerted within minutes after entering the backyard. Excavation teams uncover human remains before sunrise. Female, young adult, hands bound behind the back with electrical wire. Dental records later identified the victim as Megan Doyle, one of the missing women Detective Samuel Grady listed inside his notebooks years before retirement. The evidence transformed Walter Briggs from forgotten alcoholic into possible accomplice to multiple murders. But Daniel Harrow reacted strangely when confronted with the discovery, almost angry. He was sloppy. Daniel muttered during interrogation. Not denial, not grief, disgust. Bennett pushed harder. How many victims did Briggs help you bury? Daniel stared silently at the table for nearly a minute. Then he whispered something chilling. He only saw one. One, meaning Briggs likely knew enough to become dangerous later. And if Daniel truly valued control above everything else, Bennett suddenly realized another horrifying possibility. Accomplices rarely survive long around organized predators. Investigators reopened Walter Briggs' death records immediately afterward. Officially, he died alone from alcohol-related illness inside a trailer home in 2008. No autopsy beyond basic examination. No suspicion. But toxicology samples preserved from the original investigation still existed. New testing revealed lethal traces of industrial sedatives inconsistent with ordinary alcohol poisoning. Walter Briggs may have been murdered too, possibly silenced permanently after becoming a liability. Meanwhile, forensic analysts continued examining videotapes recovered from Daniel's properties. Some footage became almost impossible to watch. Women crying, pleading, praying. The psychological torture disturbed investigators beyond the physical violence because Daniel appeared fascinated by fear itself. He recorded hopelessness carefully, collected it, studied it. Then analysts discovered another disturbing pattern hidden inside the tapes. Music. Soft jazz songs played repeatedly during recordings involving multiple victims. Investigators initially dismissed it as background noise until one detective recognized the melodies from an old local radio program broadcast exclusively Sunday nights during the late 80s. The station archives still existed, and timestamps from the broadcast allowed investigators to determine approximate recording dates more accurately than ever before. One tape involving Clara Whitmore had been filmed 41 days after her disappearance. 41 days. Alive underground. The emotional weight shattered everyone connected to the case. Families realized their loved ones may have survived far longer than anyone imagined while police searched blindly above them. Detective Bennett stopped sleeping entirely after reviewing the timeline evidence. Every recovered videotape felt like listening to ghosts trapped in moments nobody could change anymore. Then came the phone call. A retired truck driver from Nevada contacted investigators after seeing national news coverage about Daniel Harrow. 30 years earlier, he encountered a frightened young woman at a roadside gas station outside Reno around midnight. The girl appeared bruised and terrified, standing beside a dark pickup truck, matching Daniel's vehicle description. She tried handing me something. The driver explained. A note crumbled tightly inside her fist. But before he reached her, a calm-looking man appeared suddenly, wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and laughed casually. My wife gets confused sometimes, the man reportedly told him. The truck driver remembered the woman's face for decades because she looked directly at him while crying silently. Investigators showed him photographs from recovered victims. He identified Nicole Barrett instantly, meaning Daniel transported living captives across multiple states during the late 80s without detection. The scope of the nightmare kept expanding, and somewhere buried beneath decades of lies, Detective Bennett began fearing something worse than undiscovered graves still waited ahead, because Daniel Harrow continued smiling occasionally during interrogations, like a man protecting one final secret nobody else had uncovered yet. Part 6. The smile became the center of everything. Detective Laura Bennett noticed it first during the 5th interrogation session after Walter Briggs' body was exhumed. Daniel Harrow sat beneath fluorescent lights wearing county jail orange while rain slammed against reinforced windows outside. Most killers eventually crack beneath pressure once investigators uncovered enough evidence. They raged, denied, collapsed emotionally. Daniel did none of those things. He watched, calmly, and every time detectives approached certain subjects, that faint smile appeared again. Not pride, not amusement, something stranger, expectation, like he knew investigators still stood far away from the worst truth. Bennett reviewed hundreds of interrogation hours, searching for patterns afterward. The smile surfaced consistently around one specific topic, timelines involving Olivia Reed and the hidden underground room beneath the hunting cabin. Whenever investigators discussed the child's captivity, Daniel looked almost relieved they focused there, as if he wanted attention directed underground, away from somewhere else. That realization kept Ben awake for 2 straight nights. Then forensic analysts discovered another hidden compartment inside the cabin basement. The entrance sat beneath old concrete covered deliberately by rusted shelving units investigators initially considered immovable debris. Construction experts later confirmed someone sealed the compartment professionally decades earlier using techniques consistent with Daniel's construction background. Inside waited a narrow crawl space barely large enough for a grown adult to enter. For several seconds after cutting through the wall, nobody moved. The smell drifting outward stopped them cold. Rot, decay, something old and deeply wrong trapped underground for years. Searchlights illuminated the space, slowly revealing children's toys scattered across dirt floors. A stuffed rabbit missing one button eye. Plastic bracelets. Coloring books warped by moisture. Then investigators found the mattress. Tiny, stained dark brown. And beside it, scratched repeatedly into the wooden beams overhead in uneven, desperate handwriting. He said no one would believe me. The words destroyed the room emotionally. Some investigators walked outside, immediately vomiting behind patrol vehicles, while media helicopters thundered overhead, unaware another nightmare had just surfaced beneath Ash Grove. Everyone there understood instinctively the crawl space belonged to a child. Maybe Olivia Reed. Maybe another victim nobody even knew existed. Then forensic teams uncovered biological evidence confirming the horror. Multiple DNA profiles. At least 2 juvenile females. One matched Olivia Reed. The second profile belonged to nobody inside national databases. Unknown child. Unknown victim. Suddenly, the Ash Grove investigation transformed again. Daniel Harrow may have abducted children long before Olivia Reed. The possibility detonated nationwide. Once leaks reached reporters, old missing child cases reopened across several western states overnight. Families whose daughters vanished decades earlier flooded hotlines begging investigators to compare dental records, DNA samples, photographs. The task force nearly drowned beneath the volume, and Daniel continued smiling. Bennett confronted him directly after the crawlspace discovery. There was another child, she said coldly across the interrogation table. Who was she? Daniel tilted his head slightly. You found the rabbit? The response hit her like ice water. He remembered the toy, specifically, intimately, meaning the child mattered somehow. Tell me her name. Silence. Then the smile returned briefly. You keep assuming names matter. The sentence haunted Bennett afterward because it reflected something deeper than cruelty. Daniel viewed victims as possessions, experiences, moments of control detached from humanity entirely. Their identities mattered less to him than the fear he extracted from them. And somewhere inside that psychological darkness, Bennett realized something else. Daniel documented everything. Every grave discovered so far connected to trophies, recordings, photographs, or written notes preserved meticulously across decades. Organized offenders rarely stop cataloging suddenly, meaning if another child existed, evidence likely existed too. Investigators re-examined every item recovered from Daniel's properties, searching for overlooked clues connected to unidentified juvenile victims. Days later, analysts discovered something buried inside old VHS footage from 1993. A reflection, tiny, visible for less than 2 seconds in the corner of a cracked basement mirror during one recording involving Rachel Mercer, a little girl standing silently in the background, maybe 7 or 8 years old, watching. The footage sent shockwaves through the task force. Investigators enhanced the image repeatedly until facial features emerged clearer beneath distortion. Dark hair, thin frame, oversized sweater, terrified expression. Nobody recognized her, but someone else did. Retired elementary school teacher Margaret Holloway contacted police after national news aired still frames from the video accidentally during a broadcast segment. Holloway believed the child resembled Sophie Grant, a third-grade student who vanished briefly for nearly 48 hours in spring 1993 before mysteriously returning home traumatized and unable to explain where she'd been. At the time, police assumed attempted abduction. Sophie claimed a man in a truck took her somewhere underground before eventually releasing her beside a highway rest stop 2 counties away. Nobody believed most of her story because parts sounded impossible. She described hidden rooms, chains, women crying behind walls, a stuffed rabbit missing one eye. Investigators dismissed the statements as trauma-induced confusion from a frightened child. Now every detail matched evidence recovered from Daniel Harrow's properties exactly. Bennett located Sophie Grant immediately, or tried to. Sophie disappeared again in 2001 at age 17. Never found. The realization devastated investigators because it suggested Daniel may have returned for her years later after she survived initially. And suddenly the unidentified juvenile DNA profile from the crawlspace carried terrifying new weight. Could Sophie have died there eventually? Forensic genealogy teams worked nonstop attempting identification, while excavations continued around Daniel's former properties. Grave after grave emerged from forgotten land, connected to his delivery routes. Some remains dated back into the early 80s before Daniel even settled permanently in Ash Grove. The victim count reached 11 confirmed homicides by winter. Possibly more. Far more. Meanwhile, Ash Grove itself became psychologically unrecognizable. Tourists arrived photographing crime scenes, while true crime podcasters broadcast outside St. Luke's Church daily. Businesses closed. Property values collapsed. Residents stopped introducing themselves as being from Ash Grove entirely. The town became synonymous with hidden horror. And at the center of everything sat Daniel Harrow, watching calmly from behind reinforced glass as America tore apart his past piece by piece. Then came the letters. County jail staff intercepted the first handwritten note hidden inside Daniel's legal paperwork during routine inspection. No return address. No fingerprints. Only a single sentence written in shaky black ink. He told me you would never find her. The message reached Detective Bennett within hours. 2 days later, another arrived. Checked the water. Then another. She's still there. Investigators initially suspected hoaxes from obsessed followers or media opportunists until forensic analysis connected paper fibers from the letters to stationery sold exclusively inside Green Hollow Psychiatric Center 70 miles south of Ash Grove. One patient there immediately drew attention. Eleanor Voss, age 53, institutionalized since 1996 after severe psychological breakdown and repeated self-harm episodes. Her connection to Daniel Harrow stunned investigators. She dated him briefly during the early 80s before his marriage. And according to medical records, Eleanor spent years claiming Daniel murdered women underground. Nobody believed her. Doctors diagnosed paranoia and delusional trauma after Eleanor suffered repeated panic attacks triggered by news reports about missing women during the 90s. She became obsessed with newspaper clippings and disappeared emotionally into psychiatric treatment for decades. Until now, Detective Bennett visited Green Hollow personally. Eleanor looked fragile, pale skin, hollow eyes, hands trembling constantly beneath fluorescent hospital lights. At first, she refused speaking directly about Daniel. Then Bennett showed her photographs recovered from the cabin basement. The woman started crying immediately. He kept one alive, Eleanor whispered. The room went silent. Bennett leaned forward carefully. Who? Eleanor's breathing became uneven. A girl, she said finally. He said she learned how to stay quiet. Every investigator inside the room froze, because Eleanor described details never released publicly. Then she whispered something even worse. He built another place after the cabin. Another place. Another hidden site. And according to Eleanor, Daniel called it the Quiet House. Nobody had ever found it. Part 7. The phrase the Quiet House spread through the Ash Grove Task Force like poison. Nobody slept after Eleanor Voss said it. Detective Laura Bennett stood inside the Cold Case Command Center at nearly 3 a.m. staring across walls covered in photographs, maps, excavation reports, and missing person timelines stretching back over 40 years. Rain hammered against the building while exhausted investigators searched property records tied to Daniel Harrow, his relatives, former employers, former girlfriends, construction contracts, hunting leases, utility bills, anything that might reveal another hidden location. Nothing surfaced immediately, which made Bennett even more afraid. Daniel planned everything carefully. If a second underground site existed, he would have buried it beneath layers of normal life, somewhere invisible, somewhere people passed every day without noticing. Then one detail from Eleanor's psychiatric interviews resurfaced. He liked hearing trains at night. The sentence appeared repeatedly throughout therapy transcripts dating back to 1998. Doctors originally dismissed it as fragmented trauma language connected to Daniel, but now investigators reconsidered every word carefully. Trains. Bennett pulled old county maps covering abandoned rail lines surrounding Ash Grove and neighboring towns. 3 locations matched former freight routes active during the late 80s and 90s. Investigators cross-referenced them against Daniel's delivery records. One property stood out immediately. A condemned farmhouse outside Broward County purchased under a shell company in 1992. The ownership trail ended at a dead attorney who handled temporary land acquisitions for multiple construction clients decades earlier. On paper, the property barely existed anymore. No tax activity, no utilities, no residents. But freight trains still pass less than half a mile away every night. The task force moved before sunrise. Fog covered the countryside while armored vehicles rolled silently down cracked dirt roads toward the farmhouse hidden behind dying fields. The structure looked abandoned completely. Collapsed roof sections, broken fencing, vines swallowing exterior walls. Yet something about the property felt wrong immediately. Too isolated, too quiet. Search teams entered cautiously with cadaver dogs and forensic lights, sweeping through rotting rooms coated in dust. At first, investigators found nothing unusual besides animal nests and decades of decay. Then one detective noticed fresh-looking scratches across wooden floorboards beneath an old dining table. The boards had been replaced. Recently, within hours, excavation teams ripped through the flooring, exposing concrete underneath. And there it was, a steel hatch, almost identical to the one beneath the hunting cabin. Several investigators simply stared at it silently because everybody understood what waited below before opening it. The smell confirmed everything. Rotting moisture, human waste, decay trapped underground for decades. Flashlights illuminated narrow stairs descending into darkness, while cameras rolled continuously for evidence documentation. Bennett entered with the first team wearing respirators as dust drifted through cold underground air. The basement stretched farther than anyone expected. Not one room, an entire maze. Concrete hallways, soundproof chambers, heavy doors reinforced from the outside, and everywhere, evidence of prolonged captivity. Rust-covered chains bolted into walls, mattresses, children's clothing, scratched messages covering surfaces in desperate, overlapping handwriting. He lied. "Please don't leave me here. MOM, I'm sorry." Some investigators broke emotionally almost immediately. One federal agent walked outside hyperventilating after discovering tiny handprints pressed into old concrete near a locked room at the far end of the hallway. Then forensic lights revealed blood everywhere, years of it layered across cracks in the floor. The quiet house wasn't simply a holding location. It was a torture site, and based on dust patterns and preserved materials, Daniel used it for years, possibly decades. The media frenzy exploded before investigators even finished securing the property. Helicopters circled overhead while reporters screamed updates into cameras describing underground prison cells hidden beneath rural Oregon farmland. National anchors called the discovery one of the most disturbing criminal revelations in modern forensic history. Ash Grove disappeared completely beneath the new headline, "The Quiet House." Meanwhile, inside county jail, Daniel Harrell watched coverage calmly from his cell television. Correctional officers later reported he smiled the moment aerial footage showed the underground chambers publicly for the first time. Not fear, not panic, satisfaction, as though investigators finally reached the chapter he wanted them to find all along. Detective Bennett confronted him again that evening. "How many people were inside the quiet house?" she demanded. Daniel leaned back slowly, studying her expression. "You finally understand," he said softly. "Understand what?" "That nobody looked hard enough." The statement enraged Bennett instantly because he spoke like the real crime involved society failing to notice him rather than the murders themselves. But beneath the manipulation, another realization surfaced. Daniel wanted recognition. Not fame exactly. Acknowledgement. He viewed himself as something hidden in plain sight, while the world remained too blind to see. Then Bennett placed a photograph recovered from a quiet house across the table. A little girl, dark hair, oversized sweater. The same child seen briefly in the old videotape reflection. "We know she was there," Bennett said carefully. "Who was she?" For the first time in weeks, Daniel's composure shifted. Barely, but enough. His fingers tightened slightly against the table. "She sang constantly," he whispered. The room froze. She had a terrible voice. Not a denial, a memory, meaning the child was real, alive at some point inside the quiet house. Bennett pushed harder immediately. "What happened to her?" Daniel looked toward the security camera in the corner of the interrogation room for several seconds before answering. "I let one go once." The sentence detonated across the investigation instantly. One survived, or at least escaped. Task Force analysts reviewed every unidentified female connected to Oregon, Washington, and Northern California disappearances between 1980 and 2005, searching for survivors reporting captivity, underground rooms, abductions, or fragmented trauma memories. The breakthrough came from Arizona. A social worker contacted federal investigators after seeing national coverage surrounding the Quiet House. One of her patients, a woman named Hannah Price, spent years describing nightmares about concrete walls, trains at night, and a man who filmed her crying as a child. Nobody believed her memories fully because Hannah suffered severe dissociative trauma and possessed no official missing child history, until investigators saw her age, 36, meaning she would have been approximately 7 years old during the late 80s, exactly matching the unidentified child from Daniel's videotape. Bennett flew to Arizona immediately. Hannah lived quietly under psychiatric care outside Phoenix. Thin, withdrawn, terrified of confined spaces. She refused entering elevators and suffered panic attacks whenever hearing freight trains nearby. At first, she barely spoke. Then Bennett showed her the stuffed rabbit recovered from the crawl space beneath the hunting cabin. Hannah started screaming instantly. Not crying, screaming. Medical staff rushed into the room, while Hannah curled against the floor, repeating one sentence over and over. He said nobody hears children underground. The interview stretched across 2 painful days afterward. Fragmented memories emerged slowly through terror and medication. Hannah remembered being abducted briefly from a campground in 1989 by a man driving a dark truck. She recalled underground rooms, cameras, other women crying nearby, and another child, a girl slightly older than her, blonde. Daniel called her the quiet one. According to Hannah, the blonde girl lived underground permanently. Not days, not weeks, years. Detective Bennett felt physically sick hearing it because one horrifying possibility suddenly became unavoidable. Somebody may have spent their entire childhood imprisoned beneath Daniel Harrow's hidden properties. Then Hannah revealed a detail that shattered the investigation completely. The girl escaped once, she whispered. Bennett leaned forward carefully. What happened? Hannah stared at the floor, trembling violently. He brought her back. Silence swallowed the room. And for the first time since Daniel Harrow's arrest, Detective Laura Bennett realized the case might be even worse than death. Because somewhere buried beneath decades of graves and videotapes, there could still be a victim nobody ever reported missing. A victim who never had a family searching publicly. A victim the world never knew existed at all. Part 8. The possibility of a child growing up underground consumed the investigation completely. For weeks, nobody inside the Ash Grove Task Force spoke about anything else. Detectives stopped viewing Daniel Harrow merely as a serial murderer. The case evolved into something psychologically monstrous, a hidden world existing beneath ordinary American life for decades, invisible to neighbors, police, churches, entire communities. And somewhere inside that darkness, investigators now believe the girl may have lived for years without an identity, without sunlight, without freedom, without anyone even knowing she existed. Detective Laura Bennett replayed Hannah Price's interviews, endlessly searching for details buried beneath trauma. The woman's memories surface in fragments. Trains at night, concrete walls sweating with moisture, videotapes, crying women, a blonde girl Daniel called the quiet one. But one memory refused leaving Bennett's mind. She escaped once. Not tried, escaped, meaning the girl reached the outside world briefly before Daniel recaptured her. How does a child vanish twice without anyone noticing? That question haunted the entire task force. Then another forgotten report surfaced from 1991. A deputy in rural Broward County documented a strange incident involving a disoriented blonde girl discovered wandering near Route 9 during heavy rain one October night. The child appeared malnourished, barefoot, unable to identify herself properly. According to archive notes, she repeatedly whispered one phrase while officers attempted questioning. He'll hear the train stop. The deputy assumed the girl suffered psychological trauma or abuse from transient parents. Before Child Protective Services arrived, A calm middle-aged man claiming to be the child's uncle appeared at the station, carrying forged identification and family photographs. The deputy released her. That man was Daniel Harrow. Nobody recognized him at the time. The revelation shook investigators violently because it meant law enforcement had physically handed a captive child back to her abductor without realizing it. And somewhere inside county jail, Daniel already knew. Bennett confronted him immediately after discovering the report. "You brought her back yourself," she said. Daniel remained silent. "She reached the police station. She escaped you." For several moments, he stared at the table quietly before finally speaking. She didn't know how to live outside anymore. The sentence chilled everyone inside the interrogation room. Not anger, not justification, almost affection. Like he believed captivity transformed the child permanently into something incapable of surviving normal life. Bennett pushed harder. What was her name? Daniel looked up slowly. She forgot it. Silence swallowed the room. Because for the first time, investigators understood the true scale of psychological control Daniel exercised over victims. Not only physical imprisonment, identity destruction, isolation, so prolonged victims no longer remembered who they were. Then Daniel whispered something even worse. She stopped asking to go home after the third year. The room froze completely. 3 years. At minimum, maybe longer. National media exploded once leaks from the interrogation spread publicly. Experts debated whether Daniel Harrow represented one of the most sadistic offenders ever uncovered in modern criminal history. Former captives from unrelated abuse cases appeared on television describing trauma bonds, identity collapse, survival conditioning. But inside Ashgrove itself, reactions turned darker. People wanted answers the investigation still couldn't provide. Who was the quiet girl? Where was she now? Dead? Buried? Still alive somewhere under another identity? The uncertainty poisoned everything. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued excavating the quiet house beneath the farmhouse. Every room revealed new horrors. Hidden recording equipment, soundproof insulation, handwritten behavioral charts documenting victims' reactions to isolation and fear. Daniel studied people systematically. One notebook recovered from a locked drawer disturbed investigators beyond anything else discovered so far. It focused entirely on children. Pages filled with observations written in neat, careful handwriting. How long before trust develops? Punishment reduces resistance. Music calms them faster than threats. And repeatedly throughout the notebook, one phrase appeared circled in red ink. They stopped looking for doors eventually. The FBI Behavioral Unit classified the material among the most psychologically disturbing evidence many agents had ever encountered. Some investigators requested reassignment, afterward unable to continue reviewing Daniel's writings. Then the tapes revealed another secret. Forensic technicians restoring damaged VHS recordings uncovered footage previously believed destroyed beyond repair. Most consisted of static and distorted audio until analysts isolated one section filmed around Christmas 1992. Children's music played softly in the background. A blonde teenage girl sat on a mattress, holding a younger child wrapped in blankets. Hannah Price, alive, terrified. The older girl stroked Hannah's hair gently while whispering something investigators struggled to enhance through static. Eventually, audio specialists isolated the sentence clearly. "Don't cry when he comes downstairs." The room watching the footage fell silent, because the older girl didn't sound like another captive anymore. She sounded conditioned, protective, almost maternal. A child raised underground teaching another child how to survive captivity. Then the girl looked directly toward the camera unexpectedly and smiled. Not happiness, submission. The kind of smile hostages developed after prolonged psychological domination. Detective Bennett couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. If the quiet girl truly spent years underground beginning in early childhood, she may no longer have understood freedom normally. Daniel may have shaped her entire perception of reality. And if she survived into adulthood, would she even know she was a victim? The theory terrified investigators more than any grave. Then came the breakthrough nobody expected. An aging waitress from Nevada recognized the blonde girl after televised footage leaked accidentally during a news segment. She contacted investigators claiming a strange young woman visited a roadside diner repeatedly during the late 90s alongside an older man matching Daniel Harrow's description. The woman never spoke much, always wore oversized clothing, always looked downward, and according to the waitress, she reacted violently whenever trains passed nearby. She looked scared of the sound stopping, the waitress explained. That detail matched childhood statements from the escaped girl in the Broward County Police report exactly. Investigators traced surveillance archives from nearby gas stations and truck stops, searching for visual confirmation. Most footage no longer existed after decades passed, except one tape. A deteriorated security recording from 1998 captured Daniel Harrow entering a gas station beside a blonde woman approximately 20 years old. Thin frame, blank expression, long scar visible across her wrist. She followed Daniel closely, like a frightened shadow. The timestamp stunned investigators. If the woman was truly the quiet girl, she survived captivity for over a decade, then vanished completely afterward. Bennett showed Daniel still images from the surveillance tape during the next interrogation. For the first time since arrest, genuine emotion crossed his face. Not fear. Loss. She hated cameras by then, he murmured quietly. Who is she? Bennett demanded. Daniel studied the photograph silently. Then came the sentence that shattered everyone listening behind interrogation glass. She thought I was her father. The word spread through the investigation like a nuclear blast, because suddenly every assumption changed. The quiet girl may not have viewed herself as kidnapped at all. She may have believed Daniel Harrow raised her, loved her, protected her. And if that psychological conditioning lasted years, investigators face a horrifying possibility. She could still be alive somewhere, protecting him willingly. Then Daniel leaned closer across the table and whispered something almost too quiet for the recorder to capture. You'll never convince her otherwise. Part 9. The idea that the quiet girl might still be alive terrified the country more than the murders themselves. For months, America obsessed over the possibility. News programs debated psychological captivity nightly, while sketch artists recreated age-progressed images of the unidentified blonde girl seen in Daniel Harrow's videotapes. Social media flooded with theories, sightings, conspiracy threads. Every woman with pale hair and haunted eyes became the center of online speculation for a few hours before disappearing back into anonymity. But inside the Ash Grove Task Force, the investigation turned deeply personal. Detective Laura Bennett stopped measuring success through convictions or body counts anymore. Somewhere beyond the graves and videotapes existed a human being raised in darkness, shaped by fear, manipulated into believing her captor was family. And Daniel Harrow knew exactly how much that possibility tormented investigators. He became more cooperative after revealing the girl believed he was her father. Not fully cooperative, never enough for closure, but strategic. He fed detectives fragments deliberately, controlling the emotional rhythm of the investigation like he controlled victims for decades. During one interrogation, he described teaching the girl how to read underground. Another time, he casually mentioned she loved trains because they sounded like the ocean. The details sickened everyone listening because they sounded almost tender until investigators remembered the context surrounding them. Captivity, isolation, abuse. Then Daniel said something that changed the direction of the case entirely. She wasn't the first child. The room froze. Detective Bennett stared across the table, unable to speak immediately. What does that mean? Daniel smiled faintly. You keep thinking the story starts with her. The implication detonated through the task force within minutes after the interview ended. Investigators immediately re-examined unidentified juvenile disappearances across multiple states beginning as early as the late 70s. If Daniel abducted children before the quiet girl, the timeline expanded into something almost unimaginable. Then forensic genealogy teams finally identified the unknown juvenile DNA recovered from the crawl space beneath the hunting cabin. Her name was Lily Novak, missing since 1981, 6 years old. Abducted from a roadside motel in Idaho, while her mother slept beside her after car trouble stranded them overnight during a snowstorm. The original case received national attention briefly before fading into another tragic missing child mystery buried beneath time. Witnesses reported seeing a dark pickup truck near the motel that night. No suspect ever emerged. Until now, Lily Novak became Daniel Harrow's earliest confirmed child victim, and according to timeline analysis, the quiet girl appeared shortly afterward. Detective Bennett studied Lily's photograph for hours after identification. Blonde hair, wide smile, gap between front teeth. In one image, she held a stuffed rabbit almost identical to the one recovered beneath the hunting cabin. The realization struck Bennett physically. The rabbit never belonged to Hannah Price. It belonged to Lily, meaning the quiet girl was likely Lily Novak herself, abducted at 6 years old, raised underground for years, conditioned into believing Daniel Harrow was her father. The country exploded once the identification became public. Lily's surviving relatives broke down during televised interviews, describing decades spent wondering whether she died quickly or suffered endlessly somewhere unknown. Her mother, now elderly and visibly trembling before cameras, whispered one sentence repeatedly through tears. She hated the dark. Meanwhile, investigators reopened every recovered videotape, searching specifically for Lily. They found her everywhere. Tiny glimpses at first. A child's reflection crossing basement hallways. Small hands visible passing objects toward Daniel behind cameras. Then later footage showed a teenage girl assisting younger captives silently while avoiding eye contact with the lens. The psychological implications horrified experts nationwide. Lily wasn't simply surviving captivity anymore. She was adapting to it, possibly helping maintain it under coercion and trauma conditioning. And then investigators discovered the letters. Hundreds of them, hidden inside sealed ammunition boxes buried beneath concrete at the quiet house. Most appear written by Daniel documenting victim behaviors, punishments, routines. But several letters were different, written in childish handwriting. No dates, no names, just fragmented thoughts. Daddy says outside people lie. I was bad today because I tried opening the red door. The trains mean bedtime. One letter shattered investigators completely. I don't remember my first mommy anymore. Detective Bennett had to leave the evidence room after reading it aloud, because suddenly Lily Novak stopped feeling like a cold case victim from 1981. She became a child erased slowly over years until even her own identity dissolved underground. Then came the surveillance breakthrough. Federal analysts enhanced the 1998 Nevada gas station footage, further using modern image reconstruction software. For the first time, investigators captured a relatively clear frame of the adult blonde woman walking beside Daniel Harrow. Facial comparison confirmed the impossible. It was Lily Novak, alive at approximately 23 years old. The image spread worldwide within hours after leaking online. Millions stare at the face of a woman officially considered missing since childhood, yet apparently alive beside her abductor nearly 2 decades later. Then the question became unavoidable. What happened after 1998? Because Lily vanished completely again afterward. No records, no employment, no arrests, no death certificate, nothing, like she disappeared from existence itself. Detective Bennett believed Daniel knew exactly where Lily ended up. She pushed harder during interrogations than ever before. Where is she? Daniel remained silent. You brought her back after she escaped. You kept her hidden for years. What happened to Lily? For several moments, he looked genuinely tired for the first time since arrest. Then he whispered quietly, "She couldn't live out there." "Did you kill her?" The silence stretched painfully long. Finally, Daniel shook his head once. "No." Bennett felt hope surge briefly before Daniel continued speaking. "She chose to disappear." The sentence poisoned the room with uncertainty again. Was he lying? Manipulating? Protecting her? Investigators couldn't tell anymore because Daniel mixed truth and deception constantly, forcing detectives to question every conclusion repeatedly. Then another horrifying discovery surfaced from recovered journals beneath the quiet house. Lily gave birth. One entry from 1997 referenced the baby getting sick again and frustration over her refusal to let doctors near him. Him, a boy. The task force erupted into chaos instantly. If Lily Novak survived long enough to have a child while still psychologically controlled by Daniel Harrow, the implications became catastrophic. Investigators weren't simply searching for one missing woman anymore. They might be searching for an entire hidden bloodline connected to captivity. And if Lily truly believed Daniel was her father emotionally, what kind of life did that create for her child? Bennett confronted Daniel immediately after discovering the journal entries. "You had a grandson." Daniel smiled faintly. "No," he corrected softly. "A son." The room turned ice cold, because for several horrifying seconds, nobody understood what he meant. Then the realization hit. Daniel wasn't referring to himself as grandfather. He viewed Lily as his partner, his possession. The psychological corruption ran even deeper than investigators imagined. One FBI profiler later described the case as generational captivity. Identity destruction, so severe victims became emotionally fused to the offender across years of isolation and dependency. And somewhere beyond the walls of county jail, possibly under another name entirely, there might still be a man raised by a serial killer and the child he abducted decades earlier. Then Daniel leaned forward slowly during interrogation and whispered the sentence that would haunt Detective Laura Bennett for the rest of her life. He doesn't know who his real grandfather is either. Part 10. The possibility of a child born inside captivity pushed the Ash Grove investigation beyond anything modern criminal psychology had ever confronted. News networks stopped calling Daniel Harrow a serial killer. Now they called him the architect of a hidden family built beneath fear. The language itself disturbed people. Investigators hated using words like family when discussing underground rooms, chain victims, and decades of manipulation. But the evidence no longer allowed simpler explanations. Lily Novak vanished at 6 years old. By her 20s, she appeared psychologically bonded to the man who abducted her. Journal entries suggested she gave birth while still isolated from normal society. And somewhere out there, according to Daniel himself, existed a grown man who might never know his true origins. The country became obsessed. Tips flooded federal hotlines by the thousands every day. Amateur internet investigators compared photographs, endlessly searching for adult men resembling Daniel or Lily. True crime forums spiraled into paranoia and conspiracy theories. Some believed Lily died years earlier, and Daniel invented the child to manipulate investigators psychologically. Detective Laura Bennett wanted desperately to believe that theory. But the DNA evidence destroyed hope. Forensic analysts recovered biological samples from the Quiet House, confirming Lily Novak carried a pregnancy to term sometime around late 1997. Blood traces, medical supplies, infant clothing preserved in sealed containers underground. A child existed, without question. Then investigators uncovered the videotape, hidden inside a waterproof case buried beneath the farmhouse foundation, unlabeled, damaged heavily by moisture. Technicians spent nearly 6 days restoring enough footage to play. When the recording finally appeared on screen, the room watching it went completely silent. A woman sat holding a newborn baby beneath dim basement lighting. Lily, older now, mid-20s perhaps, thin, pale, long blonde hair hanging across hollow cheeks. She rocked the infant carefully while humming soft music investigators recognized instantly from Daniel's earlier recordings. The same jazz songs, the same underground rooms. Then Daniel's voice emerged from behind the camera. "Tell him who I am." Lily hesitated. Fear crossed her face immediately. Not fear of violence exactly. Fear of disappointing him. Finally, she looked downward toward the child and whispered softly, "Daddy." Several investigators walked out after hearing it, because the psychological horror surpassed physical brutality somehow. Daniel didn't merely imprison victims. He rewrote reality until stolen children raised new children inside that reality willingly. Then the footage became worse. Daniel stepped briefly into frame and touched the baby's face gently. "Perfect family," he murmured. The tape ended seconds later. Nobody inside the task force spoke for a long time afterward. Meanwhile, public outrage reached levels authorities struggled controlling. Protesters gathered outside county jail day and night, demanding Daniel's execution. Ash Grove received bomb threats from conspiracy extremists, claiming officials still had additional underground facilities. Former investigators from the original 90s task force faced public humiliation after media exposed how many warnings and suspicious details they overlooked for decades. And still Daniel Harrow refused providing Lily's location. Every interrogation became a twisted game, balancing truth against manipulation. Sometimes he revealed details investigators later confirmed accurate. Other times he deliberately planted false leads, sending search teams across empty forests and abandoned properties, while he smiled, watching exhaustion consume everyone around him. Then one sentence changed everything again. During a late-night interview, Daniel glanced toward Detective Bennett and said quietly, "She watches the news now." The room froze instantly. "You've had contact with her?" Bennett demanded. No response. Whereas Lily, Daniel leaned back slowly. "She knows I kept my promise." "What promise?" A faint smile crossed his face. "That nobody would ever separate us." The implication terrified investigators immediately. Lily was alive. Not years ago. Now, somewhere watching coverage of the case unfold publicly. Federal authorities